The Premier League isn't ready for Pep's next game-breaking idea, but it won't be long before we see absolutely everyone else copying it.
Your belief in this in terms of the wide, is that just something that stems back to your playing career and working under Johan Cruyff?
Yeah, he believed a lot in the wingers to be wider and higher, good quality one-against-one, to make a lot of passes to right there and I go.
I think it's official. Pep Guardiola has moved past, he has surpassed his great mentor, the legend, of course, Johan Cruyff. And that's what the greats do. The greats move forward and they move the game forward, but they move past their own ideas. They look at the landscape of football, they evolve, and they don't allow what has defined them to define them. Unlike many managers who have a tactic that dates and then the creators themselves can't evolve past them, Pep Guardiola in this game against Manchester United, I think, has done exactly that. Pep Guardiola is a mega mind, and his new tactic will be something that I imagine will be copied by the rest of the Premier League very, very soon. So this is a very, very narrow team from Pep Guardiola, and a Pep team that, of course, we generally know in terms of its foundations. It's about making the pitch as big as possible and subsequently exploiting spaces throughout. Or was this, in fact, just utter genius from Pep? Spoiler alert, I think it was. He's clever, isn't he? So the average positions paint the picture of a typical Pep 3-2-5, and nothing really strikes you until you do this. That is insane, by the way. Look at right down the bottom, picking up the ball. This heat map is insane. This is Bernardo Silva's heat map. And this was the key to Man City being able to make the pitch as big as possible, despite everyone being incredibly narrow. So let me show you how that actually worked in the match and why there's a hidden partnership within the Man City team that changes everything for the entire Premier League. This screenshot is from the 8th minute of the game, and it's a period, I mean, there was lots of periods of dominance from Man City, but this was from a sustained period of high dominance from them. Now, Gvardiol has the ball. That's not him, that's him there. Okay? Now, Gvardiol completed the 4th most passes within the Man City team with 64. But the fact that this isn't higher, I think, is an insight into how Man City are nuanced and they're nuanced with their use of this tactic and how they don't force the issue. They do not force the issue. And with that in mind, I'll refer you back to the passing networks. So let's have a look at them here. Finn will pop them up, in which you can see that Gvardiol refrained from passing directly to Grealish, whilst Walker passed to Thogden all of the time. But why was this? Well, I'm about to tell you that. So we skip forward about 3 seconds. Let's do that. And you see he's driven into a nice area of space. A space that Bernardo Silva had left. Bernardo Silva initially, and again, if you look at those average positions, is playing in this area here, but then same goes for John Stones. The movement is absolutely incredible. So Bernardo Silva, who has that profile and ability, moves out to that space on the left. Gvardiol drives into that space, and he moved from a central position to a wider position, Bernardo Silva. So away from Bernardo Silva, it also means that Man City have broken the first line of defence by him driving forward those 15 yards. And that means that a progressive pass is a much more viable option. But the great thing about this as well is because of this 15-yard drive from Gvardiol, it forces Bruno Fernandes into a decision. He has to, does he go and engage? Does he stand off? Bernardo and Gvardiol know this, and the ball ends up going to Bernardo Silva. Let's move it on one, and you'll see exactly that. There he is. There's our wonderful footballer, Bernardo Silva, with said football. Now, the pass is then played to Bernardo, who's in acres of space, and Bruno Fernandes is kind of taken out of the game as well. Grealish is also here and is out of shot on the left-hand side. So this tiny sequence of play is the first insight into Pep trying something different this season. And let me show you how. So this is what everyone expects from Man City on a typical basis. They expect the ball to be passed into Grealish, who holds width and drives either inside or to the byline. The secondary pass is in someone in those half spaces and is, typically a cutback or a chipped ball to the back post. That is not what Pep did. In fact, he inverted the process with the player in the half space being that initial carrier out onto the left side, and then with the wide player being the final receiver. This was such a common theme throughout the game. And what I liked about that was the idea that, look, the opposition want to stay compact against you a lot of the time, but can you force them out of position? Can you suck them out of position? Or can you create a congested area that leads to space elsewhere? And again, that's what they do brilliantly by having someone like Gvardiol there drive, taking out someone like Bruno Fernandes, and I've just got the names off it just so that it's a bit easier to see those Man City players. But by playing it to Silva, and then Silva being able to play the ball out to Grealish from that point onwards, it then allows or stops the Man United side from all moving across. Because by using that touchline, it gives you an element of safety. And if that ball instead was played straight to Grealish, Bruno Fernandes wouldn't get sucked in and bypassed. He would be able to go and help out. That allows you to double up. And in terms of dealing with a runner, you would be able to move over to that side as a whole team and collective, and you make life a little bit easier. What they're doing really, really well is they're almost forcing, well, they are certainly forcing this Man United side, or any side in particular, to stay within the width of the boxes. And what that leads to is a really exciting starting point for someone like Jack Grealish, because the whole team can't lock on and move from one side of the pitch to the other. But also, it gives them a better chance at almost... If you imagine a pitch, and of course you're shooting this way when you're on a pitch, but if you look at a game of football on the total opposite angle, Grealish wants to drive this way. And so he can start to look at the game from that point of view. And you have someone brilliant like Silva who can go on the blind side of players and still ultimately get to the area of the pitch that Man City want to get to time and again, which is this area here. And this was a common theme throughout the game. Between them, Bernardo and Grealish received 20 progressive passes. And to show that in actual screenshot form, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You bypass that certain player, Bernardo Silva is on his way, but those two Man City players, they're stuck. And Grealish, with that amount of space, that is dangerous. And when he is looking at the game and, capable and willing of wiggling in and out and going all over the place, what that does is it takes eyeballs, it sucks in players, and then it leaves so much space for the likes of Bernardo Silva and actually John Stones, who is a decoy runner throughout. It's all about these two. It's all about Bernardo Silva and Grealish. They are in love with each other. And Pep's in love with them. That's right, guys. It's that time. You guys have been there through thick and thin, supporting and giving me some great times, Very much like today's sponsor, Surfshark. We love Surfshark. Surfshark has been behind the channel for a long, long time. And you know that if you're going to get yourself a VPN, Surfshark is the one and only place to go. Because Surfshark is a VPN. It's a virtual private network that keeps your online data safe by encrypting all of the data between the device and the internet. This is crucial when using public Wi-Fi, as it keeps cyber criminals at bay, and everyone needs a VPN. Let me tell you why. Because with a Surfshark VPN, you can change your real location to any location around the world, over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries. Now, what this means is that you can access new content by exploring the Netflix libraries of Japan, USA, Australia. If you're on Twitter, sometimes you'll see some content, a video, and you can't watch it because you're not in the right territory. Simply change your location and you can watch that content. And when it comes to watching your favorite sporting events, be it on holiday to watch UK or vice versa, Surfshark is the one with you, because with Surfshark you can change your IP address back to the UK and tuck into Sky Sports or BBC iPlayer or any of your favorite streaming platforms. Masking your IP address is essential in becoming private online. A VPN ensures your city, country and download history is not linked to your identity. And Surfshark's clean web feature blocks ads, phishing attempts, tracking and of course malware, allowing you to surf the web safely. And the final thing that sets Surfshark apart and provides even more value is that you can use Surfshark's VPN on unlimited devices. So if you currently don't have a VPN, it just makes sense to have one to watch what you want, where you want, safely. Take a look at the link in the description. Support Surfshark, who is supporting us, and allow it to facilitate all your VPN needs, and get yourself 3 months for free using my code Allcott. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is no risk. So why not give Surfshark a go? Links in the description. Go on, tuck in. Here's an example of how Man City moved away from everything that we thought we knew about them and why it worked so brilliantly in this 3-0 victory. This is the lead up to Haaland and Man City's second goal. So we see Grealish has the ball out wide. And we also see a huge gap in the half spaces. And of course, the natural thought of any football fan is that they are going to exploit this space. But that's the second guessing of Pep. That's the genius of Pep. And that is the brilliance of how he has implanted that genius in the IQ, or the footballing IQ, of all of these Man City players. And that is why they are very often one step ahead. Because Bernardo does the absolute opposite. Instead of being this area that you're expecting the ball to go to because that's what Man City do, Bernardo Silva knows that that Man United know this. I think this is a big thing. They are one step ahead. They're thinking about what you're thinking about because it is ingrained in terms of how a Pep side plays. And McTominay actually knows that. McTominay thinks the ball's going here. But if we move it along one, we can see that, of course, Bernardo Silva makes that overlapping run. And even at this point, it feels pretty obvious when you watch it back that, of course, Bernardo Silva's on his way there. But still, even in that moment, it makes the defensive side of it look so glaring that with that overlapping run, McTominay still thinks that the ball was going to go back into that gap. And so that's why he moved there. And then all we got to do is move it on one final frame and you will see the havoc that was created. Both Dalot and McTominay are both thinking that the ball's going to come back inside. Their body language is completely wrong for what we know is about to happen. And they are both caught flat-footed. We move it on one. You see both of them are completely all at sea. And move it on one more. It leads to Bernardo Silva having an absolute age to play the ball into Haaland. And that's not it. We still got to talk about Rodri's movement for the goal, which is so important as well. Now, so if we go back just a second prior to it, you can see Rodri chilling right here. Now, Rodri could have stayed here. That's what defensive midfielders often do. But his ability to displace the opposition, and again, I think that's something I really want to kind of ram home when it comes to Pep Guardiola and his teams. I'm getting the feeling now where it's profiles over positions a lot of the time. And there's a starting point, but it's, where are you going to get to? And do you have the skill set to offer what you want, certainly in possession, but otherwise utilising size, utilising height. And Rodri is such an ace card when it comes to that, because you've got someone like John Stones. Okay, he's a centre-back, but he's actually playing as a centre midfielder. You've got Rodri who's a 6, but he's got great ability in the air. So use him and get him into the areas that you want to get him into. Bernardo Silva is a great centre midfielder, but he's actually a great winger as well. So use him for all of these things. Jack Grealish, yes, he can play as a winger, but he also has the profile of a number 10. So get him into those positions by coming inside. And it comes to this goal, that a final thing that's really important and something that has been lost in a big way is Erling Haaland's ability to score goals at the back post, because without Kevin De Bruyne, that pass isn't there that we saw as a bit of a cheat code. And we saw 2 great chances here that come from Bernardo Silva. But for this one in particular, it's all about being one step ahead, and it's all about allowing Haaland to be free at the back post, because Rodri, as you can see here, knows what's happening because they've done it a million times on the training ground, and instead of chilling at the back, he drives, makes a run. And by doing that and having an extra body in there, it's a different kind of overload, but it's one where you have to have split-second decisions, and Jonny Evans decides to follow him, which feels a little bit odd, but in that moment, he sees that Rodri is there. He sees that Maguire is going to have to go and deal with an element of the danger that might be there, because these two have been completely taken out of the game. And so Jonny Evans is now concerned with what he sees in front of him. Now, of course, in a well-run defence, he would be able to just lock on to Erling Haaland and concentrate on him. But both these players, these Man City players, know what's going on. And so Haaland drifts to the back post. Rodri drives forward, and Jonny Evans has to deal with the immediate danger, because if he slides a pass along Bernardo Silva along the line there and it's a tap in, that looks just as bad as anything else. So I do have an element of sympathy for Jonny Evans, but that is why Erling Haaland has that much space. And that's where no one seems to have spotted this. They're seeing Haaland free at the back post. Yes, of course he's free at the back post. But, what about this area here? If they've got on the ball and they're able to break, they're in trouble. But they're not concerned with that. They're focusing on the brilliance and the quality that they have. And that's why Rodri's there. And that's truly why Erling Haaland has that much space. He knows exactly what's going on. And once again, Man City are one step ahead. More about Man United, of course, in that video tomorrow. But the one thing that we've been hinting at throughout this video is that Pep's partnerships, and Pep's partnership in particular, that facilitates his entire tactical approach and could be the next big tactic, in my opinion. It's the partnership of Grealish and Bernardo-Silva. It is almost telepathic at this point, and their cohesion is down to something genius from Pep. Now, we all know that Bernardo-Silva started at life as an 8. And, let's be honest, he's played absolutely everywhere. He is such an underrated player for Man City. And Grealish started as a left winger for Man City. But deep down, Bernardo is a winger and Grealish is a 10. And Pep knows this, which makes perfect sense considering how these two played against Manchester United. The positions that they start in and the positions that they get classified as on paper are only a half-truth as to what their roles really are. Let me show you. Grealish starts out wide but plays so centrally at times. Bernardo-Silva, all over the pitch, goes over to the right-hand side at one point, but that's, it's more of a positional change. But central, deep line playmaker, can go out wide, can go central as well. So many changes, and it happens throughout the team. And despite Grealish being seen as a forward in this team, he only played one key pass. And despite Bernardo-Silva being classified as a midfielder in this game, he only made 4 progressive passes. However, Grealish made 10 progressive passes and 5 passes into the penalty area, which is synonymous of a chance facilitator number 10. Meanwhile, Bernardo-Silva made the most key passes within the City team, 3, created 3 big chances and had a total of 37 touches in the Man United box. The second most of any Man City player behind, guess who? Foden. Foden on 47. The fact that Bernardo is up there with Foden, who started as a winger in this metric, tells us that Bernardo's role within this team is a false winger. And when we talk about false wingers, that's what makes the passing networks so interesting. Because when we put the passing networks onto the tactics board, it revealed something that I thought was the case. And I think it is the case. And it makes sense when you have these false wingers, because this is sort of the positioning of the players when it comes to their passing networks. And what you see constantly is this. A starting point when it comes to those passing networks for a team that obviously likes to control the game, likes to control possession, that is not in the half spaces that you would expect a player to be in, but starting bang on those lines. And the reason they're starting bang on those lines, for me, is because you've got fantastic dribblers. And when you have fantastic dribblers, you want that space to be able to go into. And if you start here, the only way you're going to dribble into is a less dangerous space. But what I believe Pep Guardiola is doing with these false wingers is having these type players play on these lines. And in fact, it's the likes of John Stones or Rodri who are playing in those half spaces. And if it's a bounce back pass for someone like Alvarez, for example, which is a good example, because if you look at him when it comes to the passing network, you can see that his passes are a little bit safer than likes of Silva and Grealish. But when Alvarez pops the ball back, that pass then into those lanes for someone like Haaland, who will be looking for those passes, is always there. And again, it's suiting the profiles of the players that you've got. And for a team like Man United or any team that Man City generally go up against, one thing's really important is that you have to deal with what they know. And they know that if we keep our shape and we don't get pulled out and displaced, we're in a good place. So how do you stop that? How do you change that? How do you displace these players? You have someone who's ready to run those channels and you utilise Haaland from that point of view, but you also have players that suck in. They suck in the opposition because you know they are, sorry, it's the wrong way around, isn't it? But you know that they are dribblers. And yes, they will play that simple pass. But by playing that simple pass, that can lead to, that can lead to a lot of space out wide for Walker, which we saw in the first half with him creating a great chance for Foden to then spin in. But by sucking in those players, you leave those half spaces, I can't speak anymore, you leave those half spaces for the opposition. And that is something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. But if you don't have the players with the right profiles in those positions, Grealish, Silva, Alvarez to a point, Foden, of course, as well, then you can't play that kind of football. This kind of football is also incredibly draining mentally and will lead to people making odd mistakes. And then when you've got about 20 minutes left, what are you going to do? You're going to put it on Doku, who's just going to run and run and run at you. It's so smart. And once again, he does seem to be a step ahead. And in particular, Pep is cooking up the false winger tactic. And it's about to take the Premier League by storm. People will soon be playing wingers centrally and their 10s as wingers. And it will be down to what Pep does this season.